Thank you, everybody. I was excited to open the newspaper this morning and see an article about that the companies are scrambling to get enough organic food. People are demanding local, organic, healthy soil. So they're making a 4-part series about grass-fed beef and all these things. So the people are demanding it. So I was just talking to Jay, like the earth is like about to go off a cliff, and it seems like at the last minute maybe things can turn around and we'll have a good story out of this whole disaster. So we're going to talk about the physical and non-physical cause of disease today. Like she said, I have 10,000 patients now over 25 years, so I've had a lot of time to really experience what's the root cause of things. And it's very rare that the cause is really physical. And if it is physical, I think most people I've seen many healers and doctors, and it's been taken care of, because the people I'm seeing, there's always other dimensions besides just the physical. And maybe the easy pickings have already been taken. But the system we have is really broken. It's very expensive. The side effects are just treating the symptoms. And people go to the doctor first. I think it's all upside down. And it's so expensive because I've seen people, have a headache and go to the emergency room and get an MRI and blood work, and thousands of dollars. And I tell them, you ate some fried food and it affected your gallbladder meridian, so you got a little headache. So I think if people, would look at the physical cause with a natural way first, because what we call health care is really disease care, it's just based on disease. And it's not really health assurance, it's health insurance, but it doesn't assure your health. So we really have to, for our own finances and for our own health, take control of our own health. So, do you remember in biology class in high school the word homeostasis? That's what life is about. It's everything coming back into balance. We get an infection, we get a toxin, we deal with it, we go out of balance a little bit and come back into resilient balance. We bounce back. So a lot of diseases today are just labeled as if they understand it. Like if your muscles hurt, they label it fibro. I've had a patient spend $25,000 at Mayo Clinic to get the diagnosis, you have fibromyalgia, which just means your fibers hurt and there's not much we have to offer you. So, and we have to trust the body. Like last week I got a splinter in my finger, it's a little bit too deep to get out, so I just left it there and watched it. And it was amazing how it made inflammation, a little bit of pus, a little bit of pain, and then after 4 or 5 days it just came to the surface and popped out. And it's like your intelligence, your body just knows how to do this without thinking about it. Same thing with fevers. People are so scared of fevers. I've seen many children when they get 100, 101 fever that they give them Tylenol and things to lower the fever. Some viruses need 104 to burn out of the body, so the body knows what it's doing. So if we keep doing things like reducing fevers, then the body gets lazy and can't launch a good fever, and you get chronic infections and chronic health problems. So you have to trust the process. But of course, some people need more help than just a splinter coming out, so that's why we have hundreds of remedies. We have thousands of homeopathics, thousands of herbs, hundreds of nutritional products that are more modern, that have been researched, that help health. So I also use a lot of compresses, like ginger compresses and castor oil packs, change people's diet, find out what they're allergic to. So if you try all those things and work on the non-physical cause of the emotional and spiritual and mental levels, then the few percentage of cases that need the modern medical doctors, they're amazing for acute problems, and if you broke your bone, that's where you would go. But for the majority of cases, we can handle it with natural medicine. So the main physical level toxins problems are mostly toxins, bugs or different infections, allergies, and diet. So we know there's a lot of toxins in our environment. I just heard recently that there's 150,000 toxins now in our environment. It's an astounding number. Like Teflon is showing up in penguins, and I'm sure they're not cooking on non-stick pans. But somehow what we do here goes around the whole world. So the toxins get in the system, they go into the organs, into the tissues, into the cells, they stop the processing of these organs and cells, and they create health problems and damage the tissues. So we want to minimize toxins. In 2004, we used to think that the baby was at least protected by the placental barrier. But then in 2004, they took 10 children at random, took some blood out of their umbilical cord, which is the blood they were getting in the womb, and the average child had 204 toxins. And that was a while ago, before they had enough technology to test for more toxins. So we wonder why these kids all have ADD and ear infections and allergies. I had a patient a few years ago that you have to be like a detective to figure out what's going on. Like, so she went to the doctors because she had tight chest and a rapid heartbeat. And then I questioned her more in detail, and she said, well, actually, mostly it's in the afternoon. And she said, actually, it's more during school days. So I tested her, and it showed that she was allergic to the pesticides on the salad bar. So she was trying to make the best choice at school by eating the salad bar. And then she did a research project on pesticides and started bringing her own food, and her friends started bringing their own food, and she never had that problem again. So that shows how you have to really look what's going on in the cause. One of the main toxins I find is tap water. Unfortunately, we can't really just turn on the tap anymore and just drink that water. They add something to the water like chlorine to kill the bacteria, which makes byproducts that are toxic. They add fluorine because they think it's good for people's teeth, but that we know is lowering IQ and causing mental problems. There's a database, Environmental Working Group has a database now that you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you what's in your water. So in my water in Minnetonka, a few years ago, they said, we found this high copper in your water because so many people have copper pipes. But then they said, don't worry, we added a chemical to take care of the copper. So you need good water. I find the easiest, because you don't want to have to lug water if you're going to like cook a pot of soup or a stew or rice. So it's good to have a good filter, like a reverse osmosis on your tap underneath. And you can get distillers too to make distilled water. There's a few like the Frederick Miller springs, a few springs you can fill up your own 5-gallon or 1-gallon bottles and carry those. But a lot of people they think there's a fridge filter that's going to do it. That doesn't really take out very much. So you need reverse osmosis to get the fluoride out of the water. The fish are unfortunately getting toxic. A lot of people showing up seafood, like shellfish, scallops. A lot of fish are getting toxic, and you have to have them more occasionally. And if you get wild rice, it's a little better. But people are peeing in the water, it's going into, they can't filter all that out. So you're actually drinking your drugs from your neighbor's urination. So the fish are actually getting sex change operations. The male fish are growing eggs because of all the birth control pills that are being in the water. I had a patient once that thought she had MS, and I asked her in more detail. She just got back from Florida, and she was eating grouper every day. And grouper, is a very large, big fish that eats little fish, and it bioaccumulates up the food chain and goes into us too. So we had to cut out fish. We did a metal detox, and her so-called MS went away just by detoxifying the metal. So mercury is probably the most important toxin that people have. And unfortunately, a lot of us, when we were younger, they're using it less and less now as the silver fillings. They call it silver because they're silver colored, but they're really made of mercury, half mercury, and they're toxic wastes before they get in your mouth. They're toxic waste after they leave your mouth, but somehow at your mouth, it's like magically safe. So these mercury molecules get in the brain cells, they kill the brain cell, they go to the next one, they just keep on doing that. So eventually, almost all my patients eventually have to get that mercury taken out of their teeth. And it's good to have a natural dentist that knows what they're doing to take it out the right way so it's not ground out, but taken out in chunks. And they use a rubber dam, and they use suction, and we can test the materials to see what's a safe material to replace it with. So it's a little bit expensive, but it's better than Alzheimer's or something else down the road. So like I mentioned, the pesticides, the Environmental Working Group also has something called the Dirty Dozen. If you just Google Dirty Dozen, they do a study every year. What are the top 12 foods that have the most pesticides? So if you can't afford everything organic, at least get those 12, because those are the highest residues. And that they've called the Clean 15, which are the one of the least residues, things that have big shells like pineapple or avocado or bananas. They don't have much toxins. If you can't afford everything organic, she has a little card. You can get a card in your wallet.
That's from
Yeah, from the Environmental Working Group, yes. So related to pesticides is the GMOs. So they actually genetically modified other organisms in plants, and they mix their genes together. And a lot of it is just so they can dump more pesticides and more herbicide on the plant without killing it. So you're not only getting the genetically modified problem, you're getting more pesticides in those foods. The main GMO foods are sugar, corn, soy, wheat, and canola oil. So those, I think 91% of corn and soy are now GMO. So that's hard to avoid if you're eating regular food. So get organic when you can. And the modern wheat is not technically a GMO, but they've changed the wheat structure so much that it acts like that. It's very foreign to our body the way they've hybridized it, because it makes more yield. It makes much more wheat per bushel now. But it's really not good for a lot of people. So most of my patients are coming in on the intake form, it says off of dairy, off of gluten, because people are figuring out a lot of these autoimmune problems related to gluten. And canola oil is like, if you can avoid two foods, I would say corn syrup and white sugar you should avoid, and canola oil, which not many people know about. Even health food stores, you'll see in the deli they'll use canola oil, and I find that's really a bad oil on the liver and the brain. So artificial chemicals you probably all know about, like artificial colors and artificial sweeteners and preservatives. I just read the other day that Trix cereal uses now, they use like carrots and beets to get their colors. People are demanding to get the artificial colors back because they miss the bright colors. So a lot of ignorance still out there. Because in this article today, they mentioned that organic is only 5% of the food out there, but it's the only part of the food sales that is going up. So it's very small, but you can see the consciousness is trying to change it. People are starting to be aware of the value of that. And that Roundup chemical, that the main pesticide they use, they found that it also dries the plants on the field. So even if it's not organic, but it's not GMO, they can spray, like on Quaker oats, they can spray this Roundup to dry it out on the field, easier than drying it in the silos. So they're using it as a desiccant, so that's another source of pesticides. Some of the bugs we have are like, we know all about bacteria and viruses, and of course now people are realizing that antibiotics are used just too much. It wipes out the good bacteria and depletes your immune system. So I would save antibiotics for when your life's in danger. Don't use it for just a sinus infection or cough. Viruses, there's homeopathics and herbs and things that can help your immune system with viruses. And it's interesting with these infections, some people get sick 3 times a year and it lingers for weeks, and some people get sick once every 5 years and it lasts 2 days. So it really is the strength of our system that's more important. And a lot of people I see when they first come in get sick often. Once they build up their system and detoxify, they're the one that don't get what's going around, so you can change your system. And one thing I find that people don't know about is parasites. And you think that's like a problem in a third world country, but I find often people would if you think you have candida, like gas and bloating and diarrhea, constipation, it doesn't go right away within a few weeks, then usually there's a parasite there. And I find adult acne is one of the symptoms I find often with parasites, that these toxins come out through the skin, get skin rashes, eczema. So there's definitely homeopathic remedies. And I'd say 20% of the people I've seen have had parasites. So that's a common problem. But I'm sure you're interested more in the non-physical cause of disease, so that's what I'm going to talk about, the physical. So the non-physical is probably more important as the root cause of things. And this really struck home. Do you know Dr. Emoto's work with the messages of water? I think it was in What the Bleep, they had that. He would take vials of water and put words or play music to the water and then freeze it on 100 different slides to make snowflakes out of the water. And every single word and music made a different type of snowflake. So he took Beethoven's Emperor Concerto, was this giant big crystal, or Love was this beautiful filigree 6-pointed crystal. But then he took heavy metal music and it was broken and wouldn't even crystallize. He took the word hate and it looked like an ugly devil. So it really struck how, thoughts can become things, even words. And he took in the book, he took polluted water that wouldn't even crystallize, and he gave it to a Shinto priest, and he said, "We make a blessing on this water," and then it turned to a 7-pointed crystal. And he's like, "That's strange, I've only seen 6-pointed crystals." And the priest said, I prayed to the 7 goddesses of fortune to bless the water. So even just that little thought created a different pattern in the water. And we're mostly made of water. So the way he blessed the water, you have to bless your food, because even if you're getting organic food, there could be blow-off, there could be sprays, there could be thoughts and feelings in the meat, especially if you eat meat. The animals know that they're dying, maybe they're not raised with such compassion, that they have these feelings in the meat, that I would rub your hands together. So you try to rub your hands together now. And then see if you can feel a vibration when you come in toward the other hand. It's like the chi. There's 2 chakras here. And you can put a hand on top and the bottom of your water and bless it and visualize light. And I find violet is a very good color. It's called the violet flame. It consumes negative energy. It's a high frequency. So you can bless your food, thank the animals, thank the farmers, thank God for this food, and bless it, and spend 30 seconds or so, and you'll transmute the energy in the food. Because we're taking in not just the physical energy of the food, we're taking the emotional and the mental energy, spiritual energy. So in this book on Messages from Water with Dr. Emoto, he had something called the rice experiment. And I did this with my son. He's like 24 now, he was 8 at the time. We took 2 sterilized jars and put leftover cereal. We had rice barley cereal that day, so we put equal amount in both jars and sealed it. And one jar, every day he would bless. He said, I love you, thank you, we welcome you. And the other jar, he said, I hate you, go away, you're ugly. And after a few weeks, you could see there was a little bit of a change in color. After like 4 or 5 weeks, the one that he blessed turned into like miso. It smelled kind of sweet, it was a golden color. If you ever smelled miso, it's kind of a good fermentation. And the one he cursed turned into black mold and smelled like vomit and made you gag. And the only difference was these thoughts and feelings that he put into us. So that's when I realized that this is our subconscious mind, our guts and our organs. And if we have self-talk that says, I hate myself, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, that's what's determining which kind of good bacteria or bad bacteria grow in your system. So I know doctors are doing like stool implants and all these things, but it's really the consciousness that determines what's growing in our body. So I found that the emotional stress factor is a big deal with health. I'll give you a little scenario. Like, suppose you have a stressful situation, your epinephrine goes up, and then your blood sugar goes up, and then your blood sugar drops, so you feel tired. And then you don't sleep well, and then you're losing up B vitamins, and your memory's going off, and then you get lactic acid building up, so you get fibromyalgia or pain in your muscles. And then your tryptophan doesn't convert to serotonin, so you get depressed, and then you're drawn to comfort foods because you're depressed, and then you start gaining weight. And that's what most people are allergic to. It's funny when you go to the drugstore or the gas station, they have a whole section of junk foods, and then there's a whole section of, headache formula, diarrhea. It's like, you eat these foods, you eat these things. So people first go to the over-counter, and that doesn't work. They go to the prescription, they have the expensive prescription drugs. Then the sphincters start opening up, and you start getting diarrhea, or you start getting reflux, and you lose more minerals, and your cortisol goes up, so your thyroid goes down. And that makes the leaky gut happen where you get all these food allergies. And then the hormones, did you know that cholesterol is actually necessary in the body to make all the hormones, the female hormones, the male hormones? They're made out of cholesterol. If you're taking drugs to remove cholesterol, you're lowering all your hormones. So, the men will lose their sex drive, the women will get PMS or fertility problems or menopause symptoms. So that all started with an emotional stress down the line, all these different hormones and glands. So no one looks at that root cause of things. And that's why there's so many drugs to try to treat these little symptoms that are happening downstream. So the average 45-year-old is on 4 different drugs right now. I've seen people bring in 12 drugs. And after 2 or 3, it's hard to really find what's the side effect and what's really the disease. So it's like, there's no way you can manage that. There's too many. You have to unpeel that and try to get to the root cause. Sometimes drugs are necessary for a few of them, but not 12. So I've always tried to work on the root cause of things, and I got an inner voice to look into German New Medicine. So I looked online, which German New Medicine? And it's this idea, this guy looked at brain scans, like MRIs, and saw a spiral in the brain, and he can tell on the MRI, or I think it was a CAT scan, he could tell what part of the brain was affected, where their cancer would be, and what organ, by where it was in the brain. So I didn't find any class to take on it, so I just put it on the back burner. And then my inner voice said, go see Dr. Irestone, who's a chiropractor in Burnsville. He had seen me like 15 years before. He looked to all the best healers to try to find out why his Lyme disease wasn't getting better. And I went to him and I said, you know something? He said, it's the quantum neural reset therapy. It's this emotional patterning in the brain that when you clear that, he cleared that, and he was able to work again, and he got rid of all his Lyme symptoms. So I said, I got to learn this. He said, actually, next weekend in Atlanta, they're having a class. So I went down to Atlanta, and the teacher there said, ease into this, you're doing acupuncture and other things, but when I tested all my patients, everyone wanted this QNRT, so that's what I've been focusing on lately. So in this class, he mentions the ACEs study, ACES, the Adverse Childhood Effects Study by the National Institute of Health, where they interviewed people who had the worst health outcomes, cancer, autoimmune disease, drug addiction, and they looked in their health history and their emotional history and found out the more emotional stresses and traumas as a child, the worse their health as an adult. So this shows the relevance of long-term emotional stress in the brain and the nervous system. So the brain will interpret anything similar in the past to the present. So like, I don't know if you ever noticed a puppy that's been hit, maybe kicked by a man when it was a baby, and then when it grows up, anytime it sees any man, it'll put its tail down and put its head down. So if if you're a woman who keeps tracking the abusive boyfriends, it's almost like you have a kick me sign that you're seeing through the lens of your past traumas, and you keep attracting the same experience again and again. So in this Q&RT, we look at the age of the person, who they had the emotional reaction with, what part of the brain, what are the emotions of that part of the brain, what are the organs connected, and which are the emotions of those organs. So in this system, the thyroid is powerlessness. So powerlessness is, we have a lot of thyroid problems in our society. The cerebellum shows up a lot at the beginning, and the limbic system of the brain has to do with feeling unsafe. The liver in this system has to do with starving for love. So, and especially for men, it's easier than talk therapy. You just have to say a few things, and we clear these emotional patterns out of the brain. This afternoon, we'll be talking more about the Chinese organs. Like in Chinese medicine, the liver is more anger, kidney is more fear. So we'll talk about how when you have emotional stress, it affects those organs. But if those organs are out of balance, then it'll create those emotions. So if you have fear, it'll weaken your kidneys. But if you have weak kidneys, it'll make you more fearful. So you have to work on the physical and the emotional. So we release the past adverse emotional stress, reprogram the coping mechanisms in the brain, reset the brain-body connection so we can heal from the past and present emotional stresses. I still use homeopathic remedies a lot. I use flower essence for emotions. I use herbs and nutritional products for depression and anxiety and stress. So there's other energetic systems like tapping and other things that can help with emotional stress in the nervous system. So in this system, even physical things have an emotional component. So like mercury is guilt and shame. So it may be that some people have mercury fillings and never get a problem at all. And if you have guilt and shame, it's almost like the anchor that it makes it stick in your system more. So mold is feeling unworthy. Lyme disease is feeling unlovable. Wheat, you know how gluten holds things together? So if you have a wheat allergy, it means you can't hold something together in your life emotionally. So there's all these symbols of the different toxins. And I also find I have a way of testing the adrenal gland and the nervous system. And most people, when they first come in, the adrenals are in the most exhausted stage, and the nervous system is the most exhausted stage. That's because they're running all these programs. Maybe they have 6 or 7 different ages that they're running in their brain constantly, from their, being embarrassed in front of the class when they were 6 years old, or a boy, teasing them when they were in 7th grade, or moving many times when they were children. And when you take these patterns out of the brain, the adrenals start coming back online, the nervous system comes calming down, and people start sleeping better, feeling more energy, so these things can be healed. I had a case recently of someone who had an abortion when they were 25 years old, and she sort of vaguely remembered the experience, but after we did the system, she actually remembered being on the table and what it smelled like and what she was wrestling with herself if she should go through with this. And she said the day after we cleared this record, she didn't want alcohol, coffee, or cigarettes like she had every day. They were just a coping mechanism to suppress this guilt and shame that she felt. And when she forgave that part of herself, those addictions went away. There's something in the system called a core driver, which is in the limbic system of the brain, like a core self-image issue in your system. So a woman showed up at 6 months old in the womb. She wasn't even born yet, and showed her core issue was feeling unwanted. So it affected all her relations with men, all her jobs. Everything was coming around this core issue of being unwanted because her parents had older kids. They didn't expect to get pregnant. And then once they were pregnant, they wanted a boy, and she was a girl. So that was like a theme. Then you change that theme, and you can change what you attract into your life. So we all know the power of meditation to calm the conscious mind, to help, because our conscious mind is only 5% of our brain, 95% is unconscious, and you can't change that 95% just by thinking and willing with the conscious mind. So meditation is a good tool to help the autonomic nervous system, which functions well when it's relaxed and at peace, and then the breathing helps to relax the nervous system. And it's interesting with MRIs now, they can tell people who meditate build actual physical, more brain matter in the areas of self-control and self-knowledge and peace. So you actually change your physical brain. So that's why at the beginning your mind is racing, don't give up, because after a while you'll get more mastery and you'll build those nerve cells so that you can feel that relaxation and that peace. So beyond the physical and emotional is the spiritual causes, which I really wanted to talk to you about, because that's like the most fascinating, is the spiritual levels. So I think we have to look at life from the perspective of the soul, not the personality, not the ego. And I find that one life is not enough for the soul to learn all its virtues, all its qualities, all its lessons, all its karma. It just doesn't happen in one life. So in this place, I know you're probably more old souls, that's why you're here. And you're all born again Christians. Hallelujah, you keep coming back. So karma is connected with reincarnation. That karma means action in Sanskrit. So everything we do comes back to roots at some point. All our old decisions, all our old actions, we have to come back, and we sometimes have to suffer what we put out in the past. So suppose you punch somebody in bar fights in your past life. Now in this life you might have arthritis in your hands. You might never remember that, but you might have made karma by using your hands to hurt people. So if you've caused suffering to other people, sometimes it'll come back symbolically like that. So this is a missing factor in health, and it doesn't clear so easily. You can't just wish it to go away. Some people on the spiritual path for a long time still have health problems, still have karmic problems. So you have to just change your attitude. If you tried your best with natural medicine, you tried your best with Western medicine, sometimes you just have to surrender, try to serve life, try to help people, try to be good, and just trust that you're just probably balancing karma. Because this can be our hell down here, not just some afterlife. So sometimes our suffering is our payback. And not only trauma comes through, but phobias I find come through. People, why is someone scared of heights and someone else is scared of snakes and someone else is scared of being buried alive? These are often how we've died. So imagine if you were in the French Revolution and you were part of the aristocracy and you got your head cut off. Imagine right before you died, you probably tighten your shoulder, your neck, and you might come in with neck problems. But then on the other side, the guillotine operator probably has many lifetimes of neck problems and probably loses their head very easily. So you have to look at these karmic levels. So, of course, what's showing up a lot of my patients is service. Almost, when I test people, I can tell things besides diet, what they need to do in their life. And almost everybody recently is showing up they need to volunteer, do community service. And that's the Aquarian age, it's all about service and community. So it's better to do it out of love and service, not just because I think I'm going to balance some karma, so I'm going to help someone. But even that's better than doing nothing. So imagine we're fingers, on the same hand, move around your chair a little bit, look around, and we're all the same being in many, many different bodies. We're all the same being. And when you serve the other parts of life, then you're serving yourself without even thinking about it. So you probably have all heard of the chakras, I'm sure. So the chakras in India, Sanskrit, is these wheels or lotuses of energy. There's these nerve plexuses in our body. We have 7 main ones, and they go up the spine. And each one has a different emotional, spiritual component. And there's organs on the physical connected to these different chakras. So if you have a flow that's blocked for some reason, it can't feed those organs, and they can dysfunction. And if you have a health problem, it can also affect those chakras. So the base chakra has 4 petals in the base of the spine. It has to do with the physical, the gonads, and being grounded to the earth and welcoming yourself to your body. This soul chakra, the soul chakra has to do with this 6-petal flower that's called the Svadhisthana. That's where the soul, it's also called the seat of the soul chakra, because our soul is anchored in our body, and that's why in martial arts they call it Dantian, the hara. That's where our soul is anchored in our body. In Chinese medicine they call it the moving qi between the kidneys. So if the kidneys are a problem, sometimes it's the soul chakra. Solar plexus has 10 petals. There's many organs there. There's the spleen, the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, the stomach. So a lot of digestive problems and organ problems are from feeling lack of peace or feeling anger in the solar plexus. And the heart chakra has 12 petals, anahata. That has to do with love and compassion and forgiveness. So that affects the thymus gland, which is the T cells from our immune system, and our physical heart is there. The throat chakra is 16 petals. It's the blue wheel of energy that has to do with power and creation and the word. And the thyroid is right there, and then the neck itself. The third eye is 96 petals, has to do with spiritual vision, has to do with our pineal gland, which controls sleep and tanning and spirituality, and our frontal cortex. And our crown chakra, called the 1,000-petal lotus, I think it has 972 petals, it's a golden chakra that has to do with wisdom and the brain and higher intelligence. So it's good to, like Dr. Dispenza has good meditations to do to clear the chakras and balance these energies. So over the years, I've worked on myself. Well, I want to mention one more thing about when you form in the womb. If you didn't develop your heart in your past life, and you're forming a new baby's body in the womb, if you don't have a good heart development, you can't form a good heart chakra. Then if the baby has a heart defect as a baby, you don't say to someone, I love you with all my gallbladder. You say, I love you with all my heart, because we know no heart is love. So it tells subconsciously to that child who has the heart defect that maybe you having a hard time expressing or receiving love in your past life. So everything is a symbol for the soul. So I've been working on myself for 35 years or so. So somehow, when I got into this healing work, I was supposed to be a medical doctor. My brother's a doctor, my father's a doctor, and I almost went down that road, but I got acupuncture and felt so good from it that I wanted to study that instead, and I was doing meditation already. So I've developed these spiritual senses, and you can develop these spiritual senses as you serve people, as you have devotion to God, as you meditate. So instead of a third eye, I have like a third tongue, or maybe a second tongue, where if someone comes in the office and I taste like I'm sucking on nails, I know they have a metal toxicity problem. Or the third eye, sometimes I'll see flashes of black or red if there's a negative focus in their aura, or I'll see like violet or blue if there's positive beings around them. And inner hearing, where I'll hear something like what the karma is, or being the organ whisperer. The other day someone said, why can't I lose this weight? It's just not going away. And I touched her belly, and I heard, I hate my father, I love my father. I hate my father, I love my father. So you can see that our inner messages are like the real cause. And then feeling in my own body, when someone comes in the office, I can feel like a tightening in the liver if it's a liver problem, or I feel the throat tighten up if it's a throat chakra problem. So you can sense in your organs, and the real trick is not taking on that energy so you don't get sick, just enough so you can feel it so you know what to work on. So it comes in handy. And I found I can also test from lists. I used to have a sample of like dozens of foods and hundreds of remedies, and I had to have the person hold the remedy or hold the food to be able to test them. So recently, I found I could just think down a list with like a laser in my mind, and I could find out what's the best food for this person, what's the worst food. If this person needs acidophilus, I can check all 10 companies and find from that company is this particular one that should be taken twice a day for 3 months. So you can get very specific just with mental thought forms instead of actually having to have a physical remedy for each thing. So another level that's non-physical or astral, or non-physical. Astral is like the water element, the emotional body. And there's beings that live on, like I said, we have physical animals and plants. There's things that live on these other dimensions, on the astral level, and some of them are not positive. There can be what's called entities of addiction, a sugar entity. Why can't I stop eating sugar? I know it's not good for me. Why can't I stop alcohol or cigarettes? And there's behavior entities for gambling or sex addiction. There's even suicide entities that can whisper in people's minds. I had a patient last week that said they were told by an inner voice to go into the grandmother's closet and take out that bottle and eat what's in that bottle. And it was a whole bottle of painkillers. And that wasn't his inner voice. That was like a negative force that wanted to do him in, because he has a purpose and a mission. And so you have to be careful with these inner voices that you don't believe everything you hear. If you obsess about something too much, you can create an entity. Like you create a thought form. And that thought form is a thing. Like Dr. Emoto, you can actually create a thing in the astral level that can infect somebody else. Like if you go on a bus and you feel good and you sit on where someone else felt depressed, you can feel depressed just by sitting in their force field. So thoughts are things. Another classification of these entities is discarnates, which means without a body, or ghost. So sometimes you die, you go to these higher levels, but your emotional body doesn't decay right away, and it's not connected to the source anymore, so it has to connect to some living source in order to continue its existence. So if this was an alcoholic who died, their astral ka, or their astral sheath, or their discarnate, will try to go to a bar and try to make someone drink and try to enjoy it through them. Because if you've seen the movie Ghost, their hands will go right through a glass of alcohol. They can't touch it, so they can enjoy it through somebody else. So these can be a problem. And that's why cremation is recommended, because when you cremate the body after like 3 days in cold or on ice, then it tends to dissolve the emotional body too, so the person goes in light and doesn't have this subconscious part of themselves going around doing negative things. And more rare, but also problematic, are curses, demons, cords, black magic, witchcraft, which unfortunately shows up in difficult cases. It's kind of rare, but they can make someone feel crazy and hopeless. They've tried everything, especially those on the path who are trying to progress, who are going to help a lot of people come under these kind of astral attacks. So it's just part of being on the path. You have to learn how to protect yourself from these negative forces. And there's a fine line between this path of light and path of darkness. They use a lot of the same tools. You use mantras, visualizations, will. So it's very similar, except that the path of light, you never try to control anybody else or force anybody else. Where these dark forces, they don't care. They just try to make people do things. And the sickest people I've ever seen in the physical body are people who have done this. If you've done black magic or witchcraft in a past life, when it finally comes back, it's really terrible. People are allergic to everything, and chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, never getting better, allergic to EMFs. Like really sick people sometimes have used these kind of energies on other people. So you probably know about a lot of the tools for protecting yourself, like smudging or crystals or jewels or essential oils. Those are nice tools to help build a force field. But for the tougher cases, I find you need mantras and meditations and affirmations and prayers, and often the assistance of other beings of light that can help guide and direct us. So, and all these beings serve the light in us. These light beings serve the light in our own higher self. So we have the divine in us. And I always go back to that story by Moses, where he said to God in the burning bush, I have a lisp, speech impediment, they're not going to believe me, they don't even know your name. What's your name? And God says, my name is I am that I am. And it wasn't, a name like Dave or John, it was beingness. Like I am the God of the universe, that self-consciousness is the God in you, that self-consciousness. You are a divine being. And it says in the Bible, this is my name and my memorial for all generations. Like this was the name that was supposed to be known. But the priests thought it was so holy, they took the first 4 letters of A, Asher, AA, I am that I am, and tried to pronounce it Yud, He, Vav, He, and they put vowels in there and said Jehovah or Yahweh. So they gave it like a name, or they just used the word Lord, Adonai. It was too holy to say that name, but we were supposed to use that name in our affirmations, I am. So if you feel you're getting sick, you say, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am joyous, I am powerful. You affirm that in the present moment without thinking of the future or the past. You affirm it and you feel it in your emotions and you start precipitating it. So I'd like to give a demonstration of that. Is there anyone that feels they need more energy? Okay. Come up here. So I got these I saw you having a Net Rugolo talk in a week or so. She gave me these things. So stand a little farther over there. So first we're going to check, down, face me. We're going to check how far your force field is. So that's pretty good, about 2 feet away or so. Good. So now we're going to say an affirmation. You're going to say a few times with me, I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. So we're going to say that a few times. I'll say it with you. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. Now we're saying it loudly and with feeling. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. One more time. I am light, glowing light, radiating light, intensified light. It's already over here. Let's see. Okay, right there. Okay. Good, yeah. So all these beings serve the light that's in your heart. And there's a multitude of these beings, and it seems like they have a don't ask, don't tell policy. Like if you don't ask them for help, they don't tell you a thing. So you have to ask. And at a higher level, you are already a master. You're already a risen light being, a self-knowledge and glory. And this higher self of you knows the perfection of the God self, which knows only perfection, and it knows the problems of your lower self. So it's like an intercessor between this highest part of yourself that only knows perfection of the great I am and the lower self and the personality. So only a few people have really incarnated this higher self fully into the body, like Jesus or Krishna or Buddha. That's the goal of life, is to bring that self down to this level. So that higher mind can be called the Christ self, the Krishna self, the Buddha self. You have that inside yourself. So this threefold flame in the heart has three different colors: gold, pink, and blue. The gold is wisdom, the pink is love, and the blue is power, which is interesting because I just realized that when you buy printer ink for your printer, it's like magenta, pink, and cyan, blue, and yellow. So out of all those three colors, you can make all the colors on your printer, hundreds of colors. So all the flames, all the colors, and the chakras and the rays come out of these three colors. So on the cosmic level, the blue is the creators. And it's interesting in the Bible when it says God created the earth, it doesn't say God, it says gods. It's the Elohim is the word. So there's these beings, cosmic beings that created our solar system and created our planet are called Elohim. Let's chant Elohim together 3 times. Come the nature spirits. And I know Christianity knows a lot about saints and angels, but they know nothing about the nature spirits. So I find that those are very practical because they deal with the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual on this lower levels. So the alchemists called the ones in the physical the gnomes, the emotional ones, the water element was the undines, the mental air element was the sylphs, and the fiery spiritual ones were the salamanders. So the alchemists would use these beings to do their magic work. So you can attract these beings if you pray for them and bless them and pray for nature every morning. Bless nature because it needs a lot of help. And that's when I see these flashes in people's aura when they come in like a violet or blue flash. It's often a nature spirit flashing me saying, I'm here, we're going to help you, we're going to get to the bottom of this. So they interact with us. And the yellow is the wisdom rays. That's what most people are on, is becoming saints and ascended masters and sons and daughters of God. And that's the mind aspect. We create the mental thought forms. And then the angels surround it with feeling, and the elementals create it with physical form, so we all work together. So there's many ascended masters like Saint Germain, El Morya, Kuthumi, Dwalkul, Hilarion. There's dozens of masters we know about that you can read about them, and you can ask to be a disciple. And disciple means discipline, so they'll give you initiations. I remember when I first came on the path, I went to a bank, and I really needed money at the time. They gave me $10 too much. And I walked out of the bank, all right, $10. And I turned back and I gave them back the money, and they were like, look at me, you gave the money back to the bank. But that's the kind of level that these tests are at. You have to have integrity and honesty at every level of your being. And it's almost like the initiations are getting more light. They give you light and they see what you do with it. If you blow your harmony and get angry and get weepy, then they'll hold back a little bit. The more light you can hold, the more light they'll give to you. So it's this initiatic path of more and more responsibility. And these cosmic beings, like these angels are on the emotional level, they become qualities. You become a quality of a spirituality. Like there's a cosmic angel named Hope that represents hope for the whole planet, and her twin flame is Gabriel. There's an archangel named Charity that's twin flame of Chamuel that has to do with the heart chakra. There's Faith. Archangel Michael's twin flame is Faith. So Faith is a quality that she's become, and she represents it for the whole world. So one day you might become a quality or a virtue. And that reminds me of what I mentioned before, that we choose our parents too. So I had someone the other day that turned out she hadn't talked to their family in 10 years. And your family's your karma. That's who you came to be with. And you should look at, what's the best quality of your father, what's the best quality of your mother, and then that's your good karma, that's what you came to learn. And what's their bad qualities, that's what you came to root out of yourself. So don't feel like a victim. So I told her, at least write a Christmas card to your family and say, I forgive you, so that you don't hold on to these grudges. So you can ask these beings to help you with forgiveness, help you on the path, help you transmute your negative energy. So in difficult cases, I find lately I have to pray with the patient to get the results. I had one patient 2 weeks ago that was on 25 supplements. She spends thousands of dollars a month on supplements. She sees 3 different healers every week. And I said, we're going to make a prayer. And she never prayed. And I called to the masters, I called to higher self, we prayed to Archangel Michael. And immediately it came up she only needed 3 remedies, and she had to get rid of this non-forgiveness with her family. She had to get rid of this dark forces that were around her, and had to do the QNRT to get rid of her emotional patterns. But if you don't ask, you don't get helped. I had another guy recently that felt he was worthless. He thinks he's like a mental case and can't do anything in his life. And sure, there's a fallen angel that was attacking him. And so we worked on that. I gave him some tools to work with that. And he started building a self-esteem that he has some purpose. And often the people who are going to help the most people come under the most opposition from these dark forces. That's why you need these masters, angels, nature spirits to help protect you and direct you. One thing I find besides service is artistic activity, that people should be doing some sort of creative art or music or dance or something, maybe the drumming circle, something that would help to bring out your own creativity, because so much of our culture is being given to us in thoughts and ideas from movies and internet and other people's visions. You have to develop your own creativity. So do something artistic and creative. And then another thing showing up is that people should have an altar in their house, like a small table with a cloth and maybe a glass chalice, a candle, maybe a fake flower, or a real flower, any pictures of loved ones you want to pray for, any statues you want of Jesus or Buddha or Mother Mary, and spend some time there every day in prayer and meditation. And it's almost like these angels, like the way we use money, they use light, and when we pray and we fill our chalice with light, the angels come around and they take that light and they use it for people in Afghanistan, people in Yemen, or around the world. So when we pray for people and pray for the world, they do that regularly. It builds a force field around our house and around our aura, so we're more protected. So when I first worked in this kind of work, I'd go home, I'd feel things clinging on my aura, and I'd feel negative energy in my chakras, and sometimes it would take 3 or 4 days to clear. Now I find by doing this spiritual work every morning and every night that I don't tend to cling on or take on energy from patients anymore. So you can see how we have to work on the physical and the emotional and the spiritual levels to get to the root cause. And like I said, we're on the brink of disaster on this planet. Things seem to be about to destroy, but this is going to be a great story when we all turn it around. And just that people coming to this kind of place, you're realizing that reincarnation exists, that chakras exist, and people have to start realizing that life's bigger than just what we can see, and we start cooperating with these higher beings, with our higher self, and we're going to have a great story about how we saved this earth and brought in the Aquarian age. So I'll be giving a talk this afternoon on the organs and the 5 elements and the emotion of the organs at 12:30. So if you want to come back for that, I'll be doing that. There's no charge for that. And thank you for inviting me here. It's great to talk. So I'll make an invocation to these beings of light to work through us. We're going to visualize we're all around the earth, and the earth is in the center of us. See all the pain and the suffering and the war and the terrorism and the economy and the nature, and we're surrounding the earth, and around us are these nature spirits and these masters and these Elohim and these beings who created this earth, all sending light, and we're visualizing purple light around all of us, going into the earth, dissolving and consuming all fear. Beloved mighty iron presence, great central sun magnet, all beings of light, of Elohim, archangels, and masters of the rays, work through us and send your light into the earth. We demand a victory. We demand the light to descend through us from our iron presence, from our God's self into this earth, and transmute it and bring it into the golden age of love and wisdom. And let everyone in this room have abundance and health, vitality, and joy and service, and long life so they can do the will of God on this planet. Now I'm going to squeeze the people next to me, and I'm going to say Om, and then when you feel the squeeze, say Om until all of us are saying Om. So when you feel the squeeze, say Om. Om. Keep squeezing. Om. And squeeze the person next to you. Everybody chant Om. Om.